This really remarkable understanding of the core unity of life is not the sole province of the world's mathematical physicists. But as I said, it really has been the cherished experience of generations. And generations of refinement of techniques of meditation have really been designed to render more and more efficient the process of diving within as easily and efficiently as possible, experiencing deeper levels of mind, deeper levels of human intelligence, corresponding to the experience of deeper levels of intelligence in nature. And then, at the source of thought, one experiences this ocean of intelligence and creativity, the field of unity within. That is the so-called meditative state. It is also described as holistic experience. And as we'll see in a few moments, it has with it a remarkable transformation and correlation in the functioning of the human brain. A complete transformation so dramatically different from waking that the meditative state is now considered to be a fourth major state of consciousness, distinct from waking, dreaming, and sleeping. Another way to see how it arises and what it is to examine for a moment the phenomenon of attention. In waking consciousness, attention really is just a localized beam of consciousness. So in waking consciousness, we're always aware of something. That means our comprehension is focused on a particular object of perception or another. The meditative process is one where that narrow focus of comprehension, whatever it is, starts to, well, you start to withdraw your awareness from those isolated boundaries, and comprehension, which was narrowly focused, starts to systematically expand, opening up more holistic levels of comprehension, more holistic levels of understanding, and more holistic levels of understanding until comprehension becomes literally unbounded. Unity, wholeness. That is the experience of consciousness. And it's not foreign in a sense that it is just the experience of ourself, in the most profound sense of that word. Somebody asked what consciousness was a moment ago, or what the self is. The self is that one thing. Self is just our subjectivity, the liveliness of consciousness that allows us to see anything, experience anything, know anything. But what's so abstract about that consciousness is the consciousness itself isn't experienced, at least not in waking consciousness, where the attention is always localized on some concrete object, or thought, or emotion, or sensation. So by withdrawing that narrowly focused attention systematically to become unbounded, completely universal and abstract, that's the experience of what's called pure consciousness, pure subjectivity, the self with a big S, sometimes called Atma. So the self, our very subjectivity, is the only thing in our lives that never changes. It's the one thing that allows us to believe correctly that we're the same person today that we were as a child. Because everything else changes. The body changes for the worse. Our beliefs change, our friends change, our professions change, our spouses change. Everything changes, and yet we know we're the same person today that we were 51 years ago. And that sameness is our own subjectivity, the nature of which is infinite expansion, unbounded bliss. The origin of universes, universal intelligence, universal consciousness, that field of unity at the basis of life's diversity that underlies and connects us all. Now, for me as an educator, and there's a lot of research to back this up, and we'll see a very brave student is about to come up here. And let us take a look under his hood, and we're going to see what happens to the human brain when human attention, normally directed outward, turns systematically within, and the awareness expands and expands to experience the self. a complete real-time transformation in the functioning of the brain, which for a brain scientist is remarkable, and I think even for most people, pretty impressive. But as an educator, what is so crucial about this discovery of this meditative state and understanding it physiologically from the standpoint of brain physiology is that it really is the missing ingredient to education. It is a technique that expands consciousness, expands the container of knowledge. Now, this state of transcendental awareness or expanded consciousness is, as I said, unique. It's different from waking, dreaming, sleeping. In what sense? It's different in this striking sense that normally the electrical activity of the brain, which is often measured here and here and here and here and everywhere across the scalp, the electrical activity of our brain, the so-called brain encephalogram, EEG, is not very intelligent. I don't know if you've ever seen your own EEG scan, but it's really depressing. It's really like there's no communication between different areas of the mind and personality. Mathematically, it's very much like an orchestra before the conductor takes the stand. The musicians are warming up, they're sawing away at their instruments, and no real effort to coordinate their activity. And what do you get? A cacophony of discordant sound. And then the conductor assumes the podium and raises the baton, and then that cacophony of discordant sound is transformed instantly to flowing music. The difference? The integrated functioning of the orchestra. So that integration of brain functioning is an inevitable side effect and a striking side effect of the meditative experience. This experience of unbounded awareness that is as old as time. Now, again, as an educator, this is crucial. Why? Because orderly brain functioning, what's called global EEG coherence, where the whole brain functions in concert. Orderly brain functioning correlates scientifically with rising IQ, increased intelligence, improved learning ability and academic performance, short-term and long-term memory, enhanced moral reasoning, increased psychological stability, emotional maturity, alertness, reaction time. Everything good about the brain depends on its orderly functioning. And now, orderliness of brain functioning can be systematically developed in any student of any age. This already reverses a bleak view of human potential, mainstream view of human potential, which has been, until now, that we peak at 16 years of age. At 16, our gray matter is of maximum weight. The raw intelligence of the brain is also maximum. And thereafter, we undergo this long and torturous process of declining raw intelligence and shrinking of gray matter, which is very visible by the 20s and catastrophic by the 30s. Don't even think about the 40s or 50s. Now, by the time you get to be 51, we say, well, we make up for that with our maturity and wisdom and experience. The whole thing's pathetic, and fortunately completely obsolete and out of date, because now we know that the brain is sufficiently plastic and malleable and capable of forging new connections and learning new things throughout life. And yes, if you don't use the brain, it does atrophy. And we'll show in a moment some extraordinary pictures of acutely atrophying brains from lack of use. But even that is reversible, because the meditative state in an educational setting, which is the best place for it in my opinion, the meditative state engages the total brain and is unique among the whole range of human experiences, waking, dreaming, sleeping, hypnosis. Only this experience of unbounded awareness engages the total brain and develops the brain holistically, with longitudinal increases in IQ, even in older people in nursing homes. So it's an educational technology of the foremost magnitude. Now, if you're standing in front of a PTA, which I have many times, and trying to sell the concept of introducing a little quiet time in the classroom for the experience of unbounded awareness, I talk in terms of increased IQ and academic performance. David likes to talk, and so do I really, more in terms of enlightenment. And I want to just spend the last few minutes before I introduce Dr. Fred Travis in discussing what that term means. Well, I think we're in a position to understand very easily now what it means. Enlightenment is also called self-realization. Realization of the true nature of consciousness, which is unbounded, beyond change, universal, eternal, bliss. Now, in the beginning days and weeks and months of meditation, that's a momentary experience of expansion and exhilaration, of universal being. But it's a sticky experience. It's so profoundly attractive that it starts to stick, in the sense that you forget less and less of your true unbounded nature, even while the awareness is sharply focused on specific boundaries. So even though this process of transcending and experiencing being really develops over a period of days, and you're completely proficient by a matter of weeks or months, what grows over time is this permanency of the experience of the true nature of the self. And that permanency is called enlightenment. Now, what's so great about why it's called liberation, freedom from bondage, etc., is because until the self is known, then whatever we're experiencing, cold water, maybe mashed potatoes for dinner, that can be okay if you like potatoes, but it's really at the expense of something so much bigger. Because while you're eating those potatoes, that's it in your life. Waking consciousness, that's what it gives you at that point. What do you lose? Unbounded bliss. And if you're eating okra, marinated eggplant, life is a disaster at that point, because that's all there is. And it's not very nice, if you ask me. So, freedom from the binding influence of perception, so that you're never lost. This is what happens over regular meditation, and then it doesn't matter if you're sound asleep, or dreaming, or dynamically engaged in a tennis match or an exam, even under the depths of anesthesia. You are never lost to the experience of your unbounded inner blissful reality. That's self-realization. That's enlightenment. It's invincibility. It's inner strength. Because no matter what's happening on the outside, whether it's okra or mashed potatoes, life is always bliss. You can enjoy the parts more fully than ever before, but inner stability of bliss and contentment becomes permanent. So I would like to introduce for a few minutes Dr. Fred Travis, who is really one of the foremost brain researchers in the US, and maybe the expert in the area of meditation and brain development, who will introduce Shane Zispin, again a very brave student, who will show just in a few minutes real time the complete transformation of brain functioning associated with the meditative state, and why this is so fundamental to life and to education. When you appreciate Shane Zispin, who's going to meditate in front of about 700 people right now, when my girlfriend first saw my brain waves, I was mortified. There was little coherence and very little amplitude. So what Shane is going to share is very unusual. So please welcome Dr. Fred Travis and Shane Zispin. We open the curtains, please.
Thank you, Dr. Hagelin. We'll take a moment just to set everything up here. So we need the curtain down, please. Very good. If I only had a brain. What we'll be doing is we're going to anchor these abstract concepts which John and David had discussed in the concrete functioning of your brain. The reason this is possible is brain functioning shapes the content of daily experience. When you have a good night's rest, you wake up and there's no problem too big for you. But remember those nights that you didn't sleep so well and you wake up tired in the morning? It's a chore just to remember what day it is. And this process of brain underlying experience also goes the other way. Every experience we have in turn shapes the brain. Right now, what's happening in your brain is the light from my body is coming, it's going through your eye, it's going into the back of your brain, it's creating these waves of electrical activity, the sounds coming through your ear, just back and forth over the brain. What's happening is hundreds of thousands of brain cells are as if shaking hands and creating a delicate network. And it's this network that lets you see me and lets you understand what I'm saying. What happens is with regular experience, these networks get stronger. What you're actively doing is you're constantly creating networks that then help you understand your reality. This is the nature of your brain. Your brain is a river and not a rock. It's constantly changing. There's been some research with monkeys, in this case, where they just brushed the fingertips of the monkey. That was the additional experience the monkey had. And what they did is they looked at the part of the brain, the center brain, which actually responds when the fingertips are touched. And this is the amount of the brain that was responding every time the monkey's fingertips were touched. After 3 months of this research, this is the amount of the brain that was responding. Do you see it's much bigger? This is what happens with every experience. Have ever, any of you gone into the elevator where they have the braille and trying to read it? This is one of the things I like to do. And I keep on trying, I really can't detect all those bumps. A blind person can read it very quickly. What the blind person is doing is devoting more of their brain to the information coming through their fingertips. This is what's happening with every single experience we have. We're constantly recreating brain networks, which then recreates our reality. Now, the important point that I want you to understand is all experiences change the brain. When you're in class, you learn some concept, you learn some new skill, you're actually creating a local network in your brain. But when you stay up 1 or 2 nights, when you take an extra load in the quarter and you're just under stress, under the gun for 12 weeks at a time, that's also creating specific brain circuits. And these brain circuits result in something called downshifting, high stress and fatigue. What happens is you use the back part of your brain. This is the screen of your mind. Right now, what's coming through your eyes, what's coming through your ears is creating a picture back here. It's almost like the screen up here, and all of the slides come and replace what's there. That's what's happening in the back part of the brain, is what's happening right now. And under high stress, under fatigue, this sensory concrete area can talk to the motor system, but it just responds with what's happening right now. It's very much of a stimulus response mode. There's not a lot of thoughtful thinking. This is the way you respond when you wake up in the morning, you overslept, you're late for your class, you jump up, get your clothes on, run to class, sit down, and you forgot your homework. It's what happens when you stay up all night studying for an exam, and then you go into the exam and you fall asleep. What you do is you're lacking the ability to look into the future. That's what happens with this front part of the brain. This is the frontal executive system. This is the CEO of the brain. Chief Executive Officer of the brain is responsible for judgment, decision-making, planning. Under high stress, you actually bypass this part of the brain. Under high stress and fatigue, you bypass this part of the brain and you create circuits which leave that out. And that's what we see in this next slide. This slide is showing activity of the brain metabolic rate. This is a normal brain. You're looking at the bottom of the brain. So here's the front of the person, their nose is up here. Here's the back of the brain. Notice over here, this is a It's not a student, it's a criminal, a violent criminal. But notice these areas here. This is areas of the brain that are not active. There's not actually holes in this person's brain. It's just when that person is thinking and deciding, these parts of the brain are not contributing. So judgment, planning, thinking into the future, that part of the brain that lets you do that is not active. Now, the high stress of life, our fast-paced world, the increased pressure under here at the university, is moving this type of brain in this direction. Unless you're doing something to actually exercise these, it's very much physiological training. It's like going to the gym and lifting weights. If you want strong pectoral muscles, you lift weights in a specific way. If you want to develop this part of your brain, you have to have specific experiences. And one of those experiences is this process of transcending. It's just what it does. When the mind transcends, it actually activates, it actually enlivens and integrates the CEO of your brain. Okay, now it's time to stop talking and let's see some EEG. We have here Shane Zisman. Give him a hand, please. Thank you. What we'll be doing is we'll be looking at his brain waves in real time, and we'll see them during eyes open, during eyes closed, and then during transcendental meditation practice. Here they come, yes. And so these big bumps here and here are blinking. Could you blink 3 times for the crowd? Very good. Thank you, Shane. Now this is, oh, some extra ones. This is the, here we have a little laughing in his EEG. What we'll do is we'll actually look at a single sensor in the front. And we'll see what's happening just in this part of the brain. This is a 1 second here. There's about 8 seconds on this screen. This moving line is what's happening right at this moment. This is what the brain looks like when you're looking out at 700 people looking at you. What's happening is this very fast activity here. This is the brain taking all of the shapes of your heads and the colors of your clothes and the lights and trying to make a whole picture of it. We'll look at the back part of the brain now so we can have some perspective. Here's the back part of the brain. The key point is notice that these signals are quite different. This one is going up with one rhythm, this one is going up and down with another rhythm. What we'll ask Shane to do now is just close the eyes and we'll see how the brain waves change. And close the eyes. So the main thing I want you to notice is this type of activity is beginning to be seen here. This rhythmical activity going up and down, this is called alpha activity. This is a signature of the brain that's restful and alert. It's just humming to itself. The reason you see this in the back is that's the visual center. What's on the retina goes to the back of the brain. When your eyes are open, all this electrical activity is going back there. It's keeping the brain completely revved up. You close the eyes and that part of the brain can rest. And this is resting rhythm of the cortex. Notice in the front of the brain. The front of the brain is still quite active. It looks a lot like during eyes open. Because when you close the eyes, your mind is still going. This mental chatter is continually just grind away. And what we see during transcendental meditation is we'll notice that this resting rhythm of the cortex is seen in the front here. This is this idea of transcending. The whole mind, the whole body goes through a state of restful alertness. Inner fullness. So you can open your eyes, and we'll start from an eyes open. So here's eyes open EEG. So now you can close your eyes, begin to meditate. There are many good examples, but we can start here. Notice, again, in the back, we see this resting rhythm of the cortex. Also, it's being seen here in the front. Here, here, also here as well. This is a process of the whole mind, the whole body transcending. And we're just looking at 2 places on the brain, the front and the back. But if we had all 32 here, we would see this throughout the entire brain. We'll just continue to watch as Shane is meditating. See it coming up here? Now, if Shane was doing mindfulness meditation, you wouldn't see this up here. In mindfulness meditation, it actually involves actively evaluating, watching the situation, and the frontal areas are quite active. Actually, the measurement is called lateral asymmetry. If he was practicing Tibetan Buddhism, you would not see any alpha at all. It's a very strenuous concentration technique. You actually do it, wow, look at this. You actually do it with eyes half open. And so with brain patterns now, we can address the question that someone asked earlier, how is TM different from other meditations? So this is very good. Well, thank you for meditating. You can stop now, Shane, and open the eyes when you're comfortable. The whole point that I want you to take home is back to, there he's back in the world again, is that experience changes the brain. Meditation is an experience. You take the brain to a new state, and by going back and forth, you integrate that experience, that level of fullness, with the experience of whatever you're doing, waking, sleeping, dreaming. So much so that we can ask, what will your brain be like when you graduate? What's going to be the effect of college on your brain? And we've come up with a brain integration report card. It actually measures level of integration of brain functioning in the front, overall the brain, and also how the brain responds during a task. It augments the classical academic report card with one that's looking at level of brain functioning, which is the most enduring benefit you can get from your university. Because your knowledge is going to be obsolete in about 5 years. It's just knowledge is changing so quickly. What you want to get is to structure those circuits that allow you to think clearly. So I'd like to leave you with one idea, especially those that are leaving. I want you to stay for this. This is the Wizard of Oz. Here we have the Scarecrow. Do you remember what the Scarecrow wanted? No, sorry, that's the Tin Man. You were testing me, it was very good. Scarecrow wanted a brain. And you remember what he did? He braved being burned to death, and the monkeys took him off and tried to pull all the stuffing out. He did all that because he wanted a brain, and he came and saw the Wizard of Oz. And what is the Wizard of Oz giving him? A piece of paper. So what my recommendation to you is, don't be content with just getting a piece of paper from your college education. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Fred. Thank you very much, Shane. I'm going to invite David back up in a moment to take any questions you might have on meditation or on filmmaking. But I just wanted to say the following thing. David is really working very hard with his Hollywood contacts and other contacts to make sure every student in the United States, elementary, junior, high school, college, and graduate student, who wants the experience of meditation and diving within to have that experience. And he's therefore established the David Lynch Foundation for Consciousness-Based Education and World Peace. And we're in the process of essentially building an endowment which will allow students who want to learn meditation to be able to do so more easily. And in fact, you should have a card that you might have come in and received. If you have any interest in learning more about meditation, how to learn it, or where to learn it, how to receive support from the David Lynch Foundation, if you could leave us the card, David will get back to you in a week or two. He'll tell you the progress he is making, which is very substantial, and also give you instructions on how to learn meditation and perhaps how to be supported to do it. I just want to say one thing. We are born in this life with broad comprehension and EEG coherence. Throughout a lifetime of education, we learn to focus that broad attention increasingly sharply, which is also a very important skill to be able to recognize and manipulate our environment. But there comes a time, at the master's level, I think, where we start to realize we're learning more and more about less and less. And at the doctoral level, we've discovered we become the world's greatest expert in nothing. The specialization itself isn't the evil. It's the lack of a few moments and a little guidance of how to withdraw that narrowly confined comprehension and narrow-minded nationalism and narrow self-centeredness, etc. Expand that comprehension to live the wholeness of life, which is the true nature of our consciousness, and to become global citizens. Global citizenship, to replace narrow-minded nationalism. So David is doing this. Yeah. David has created his foundation with an ulterior motive, and that ulterior motive really is world peace. This is not a golf ball-sized idea. It is a David Lynch-sized idea, but it's a very practical approach. David's feeling is you can't have a green forest without green trees. You can't have a peaceful world without peaceful individuals. So he has created a foundation to bring the experience of profound inner peace to as many people as possible, as many who want it. And what he is very excited about achieving, and we're most excited about achieving, is not just individual peace, but the spillover effect of meditation, which is a remarkable, scientifically proven phenomenon. That is, we affect one another. We affect our loved ones, we affect our friends, our families, the entire community atmosphere, even the atmosphere of an entire city, if enough people are involved in experiencing deep peace within. You radiate that peace like a light bulb. A lit bulb radiates light. And the research shows is just as panic can spread through a room, spread through a theater, just as panic can spread through a city, calm and unity and harmony can spread through a city, can spread through a campus, can spread through the entire country or the world. We are therefore creating more and more meditators and groups of meditators, and we started in Washington, D.C. just a few weeks ago. 500 students at American University and others at neighboring universities are learning transcendental meditation with the help of the David Lynch Foundation for credit in a research project sponsored by AU to really start to create in Washington an influence of sanity and peace in this stress-ridden city. So the idea, based on extensive published research, is that if you can't get George W. Bush to meditate, and I wouldn't hold my breath, you can surround him and his administration and the Congress with an atmosphere that will replace a very fear-based, partisan-driven environment with a more coherent and harmonious and unified environment. As long as the capital city is gripped with fear and divisiveness, that's the sort of policy when it comes to environment, global warming, arms proliferation, decisions of war and peace throughout the world. That's the sort of policies you'll get. So we're starting in Washington, but now we're moving through California. We want to create as much of a palpable, measurable, physical, tangible influence of peace as possible. So in Washington, D.C., we're establishing the first campus of the University of World Peace. The idea is to counterbalance the global proliferation of military academies and graduate war colleges. Yeah. That are dedicated to advancing the science of war, which I would argue has already hit the point of diminishing returns. Have one university on earth dedicated solely to the prevention of war, to the promotion of peace, and creating a new profession, not soldier, but professional peacemaker, people with the ability and responsibility to prevent war. So please, get involved with this on any level you can. Take courses there. Learn to meditate. Be in touch with David Lynch through his foundation. And I want to, at this point, thank David and invite him back to take our final questions on film, meditation, consciousness, and the brain. Thank you, David.
And I came specifically tonight because I was interested in the concept of peace through meditation. And, you know, there's an experience very often of not feeling very powerful in the world in terms of what's happening. And my question has to do with how many meditators make the 100th monkey so that something does happen and become realized in the world. And is the meditation needed to be focused on peace, or is it just throughout?
I'm going to try to explain it. And it's so beautiful and so hard to believe. Maharishi has a saying from the very beginning, and it rhymes, so we remember this little phrase: water the root and enjoy the fruit. And this simple little phrase is the key to individual enlightenment and the key to world peace. Watering the root for the individual is that diving within, experiencing that fundamental level of pure consciousness, growing in that, and the fruit of that action is enlightenment. For world peace, now, when you expand consciousness in the individual, negativity starts to recede. The peace-creating group is like a peace-creating factory with the most perfect machines on earth inside that factory, the human beings. There's a group of people meditating and doing advanced techniques in a group. They're quadratically more powerful at enlivening that unity than the same number scattered about. This group practice has been tested 52 times. Short-term tests, smaller groups, 52 times. People had to leave their family or go away from their work and go to a place and do this, you know, program for up to 2 months. And there's famous ones. They're all independently verified tests, independently verified as being successful in reducing crime and violence, trips to the hospital, road accidents in the area of this test. Now, the size of the group determines the area. Like Dr. John Hagelin said, we're like light bulbs. We got this bliss bubbling inside, but we broadcast it out. So through these tests, they came to a formula: the square root of 1% of the world's population. That's 8,000. Square root of 1% of 6.4 billion. 8,000, a pretty small group. 8,000 or a little bit more would be sweeter. Working always, each day, permanent. So if you had $1 billion in the bank, you'd never touch it. Just the interest coming off could sustain a group of 8,000 in a place, food, little beds, and a place to do this program. And there are a lot of souls that are just want to go for enlightenment. They want to go for it. They'd be happy to do this for themselves and for the world. It's money is standing in the way of this thing happening on a permanent basis. And it sounds hard to believe. But this field of unity, as Dr. John Hagelin says, is so powerful. It's so powerful, and he used a word last night, this way when you enliven it, it goes in all directions. It sees no obstacles. It would be easy to light up this little teeny ball on the outskirts of the Milky Way with enough unity so we live in harmony. Diversity is appreciated fully, and we're just pumping with bliss. We're filled with ideas. Who knows what we'd come up with in this atmosphere? Certainly we wouldn't be running around killing each other or ripping our heads off.
So can I understand you to say the 8,000 have to be together in one location?
Yes.
Because there are more than 8,000 meditators throughout the world, but there
Yes.
are none that could claim 8,000 in one location.
Every light bulb helps, but I want to, help get peace greeting groups, as well as, lots of people, diving within to develop their full potential and becoming happy in their work, and then not dying of fear and tension and depression and all the rest of that.
Well, I want to thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hope it's successful.
Let's hope so.
Yes, and I've got a question, and if this is going to be the last question, I'll also ask for a little follow-up, which might be a good way to end this. But my initial question, and this is Mr. Hagelin and Travis can feel free to chime in on this as well, is regarding the relationship of meditation, creativity, consciousness, the brain. Where do dreams fit into this whole picture?
There's waking, sleeping, and dreaming, and then the fourth state of consciousness is that transcendental consciousness, pure consciousness. And I don't know how to answer what dreams really, what dreams really are. But I think if we can ask Dr. Fred Travis, he might be able to help us out.
Because of the hour, why don't you come up afterwards and we can discuss this? It's not a one-sentence answer here.
Okay.
What happens when you dream is your brainstem cells become active. They're never active at all. And they're like third graders that get out at recess time, and they fire up and completely activate your brain. So if you're sitting in your brain, you're seeing things, you're moving. At the same time, it goes down to the spinal cord and it paralyzes the body. It's atonia. So you might have woken up from dreaming and you haven't been able to move. You can't move a finger, and then it takes a little while and you can move your fingers and your hands. You're actually experiencing the effect of those. What are dreams? Dreams are structured forgetting. They're also an automatic self-test of the body and brain. Are you ready to wake up? And what consciousness does is it takes this random activation in the brain, tries to make sense out of it. So that's the short answer. Thank you.